Dean had asked me if I could kind of take the lead on putting together a trip report for the trip to Indonesia. So what I thought I'd do is just put together kind of a pictorial trip. So a lot of these are my pictures. Some of them are Jim's pictures, and some of them are other folks' pictures. We had a WhatsApp group while we were set up, so I actually captured some of the pictures off the WhatsApp feed as well. So I don't take credit for what happened.
I don't know, something happened. There you go. You're back on.
Oh, okay.
What happened?
Oh, that's weird. So anyway, I thought I'd just get started with, first of all, where we came from and where we went. So this is the view of the Earth where you can see both where we started here in Chicago and at that little red dot here, and that's in Manado, Indonesia. So it's almost exactly halfway around the world. The interesting thing is some of our itineraries, some of us actually went east, some of us went west. I think one person flew around the world, and yeah.
Bragging rights.
Yeah. So anyway, so zooming in a little bit closer, here is the country of Indonesia. Okay. So where we were in Manado, which is right here. This is North Sulawesi province. This is Jakarta over here, which is the capital of Indonesia. And so Indonesia actually shares land borders with Malaysia, with East Timor, and with Papua New Guinea.
And Brunei.
Yeah, Brunei is actually shares with Malaysia. Yeah, so Malaysia actually comes in two halves, kind of, and then at the tip of Malaysia is where Singapore is. So interesting that most of us routed either through Jakarta or Singapore, and then we flew from one or the other over to the Manado airport. So a little bit about the Republic of Indonesia. So here's the flag here. So what other flag is almost identical to
Poland.
Well, Poland. What one is even more identical?
Yeah, because it's flipped upside down.
If you turn it upside down, you've got a Polish flag. But there's one that's almost exactly identical.
You mean country or?
Country.
Okay, that's settled for.
No, country. Monaco. Monaco has a red and white stripe. The only difference is the shade of red is slightly different and the aspect ratio is very slightly different. So it's like most countries have rectangular flags. There are only two countries with square flags, and there's one country with a pennant flag. Anyway, so that's our geography. But anyway, Indonesia is the world's largest archipelago nation. The name comes from the Greek Indos Nizos, which means Indian Islands. It's the fourth largest country in the world by population with 280 million people. So India, China, and the United States.
280 million?
Yeah. So India, China, and the United States are the only larger countries in the world by population. Half of the population lives on Java, so making that the world's most populous island. It's also the largest Muslim majority country in the world. It's the 14th largest country in the world by land area, which when you look at it on the map, it's kind of surprising, but also, on typical flat map and Mercator projection, countries nearer to the equator look smaller than they are, and countries nearer to the poles look larger. It was a Dutch colony from 1799 to 1949. During World War II, the Japanese invaded. They declared independence 2 days after the end of World War II in 1945, and there was a war for independence from 1946 to 1949. So there were a number of us who flew through Istanbul. So this is from FlightAware, showing the track that we actually took to get from Istanbul to Jakarta. And you can see we flew over some interesting places here. So we flew right over Kabul here. We flew over Tajikistan, Uzbekistan. Yeah.
Fallujah.
Yeah, we flew over India, then over Myanmar. So very glad we didn't have any airplane trouble in Hawaii. So anyway, and here's where we ultimately wind up landing in Manado, and here's the airport right here. Why is it doing that? Here's the airport right here, and so our first resort was the Merck's Manado resort, which is actually right here, and so we traveled over land to get there. So once we got there, here's some of the view from the resort here. Is there something wrong?
Yeah, the recording stopped. Can you push the button on top of that thing?
This red one here?
No. Which one is it? Here?
Yes.
This is the big long thing?
Yes. Just push it.
There it goes.
Oh, okay. Are we good now?
Yeah, unless it stops again.
Oh, okay. So anyway, here's a view from the resort of the mountains here. So I do have some topside pictures in here. And so we pretty much had the first resort. There was some construction going on there, so we basically had it largely to ourselves. So here's our dining area here where we are eating most of our meals, and here I am with the ocean in the background. I think I was the only one who snuck a shore dive in here when we got here. It was actually kind of disappointing, but it was good to get in the water. But it was definitely, as we started out, everything just kind of, as you'll see throughout the trip, just kind of got better as we went. Before the first dive, I'm going to break out of the presentation here for a second and try to show Claire's video here. That was just given to me right now.
This is right before the first
So
dive
this is
water.
right before the first dive here. Let's see if this works.
Yeah, you got a much better view of it than I got.
Yeah.
For sure.
So this was actually phone video that Claire shot. So this was kind of the appetizer for things to come here. So
Sharks.
yeah, and you can see the nice clear water. Yeah, unfortunately, we did have an opportunity to
And it was town.
blow some trash out of the water too. Unfortunately. Okay. Should we go back into this one and not into a medical presentation?
Don't go
Okay.
into medical question.
Yeah. So anyway, here's one of our here's some of our guests here on one of our boats with some of the dive guides here. Here we are getting in the water. Dean, that's Jim too, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So this is just getting started here, but nice clear water. It was nice and warm. Got Jim here with his camera rig, and got Rob and Julie here. Some of our sister organizers who helped actually organize the trip there.
How warm was the water?
What was the water? It was like, I think it was like 81. It was like 80.
85.
It was in the 80s.
It was in the 80s.
It wasn't super hot.
Kind of low 80s.
Yeah.
Charles,
Yes.
when you had those cold currents coming up,
Yeah.
it just went down to 81.
Yeah. Yeah. So it was basically low 80s. It was thin wetsuit. Yeah.
Yeah, mid to low. It wasn't
Yeah.
super.
No.
And and then when we were at Murex on the west side there, a lot of nice coral. We had the usual anemones, and of course in the Indo-Pacific, the anemones complete with clownfishes, and there's Dean there in the
And Dean the
background.
clownfish.
And Dean the clown. The other thing too was we were treated to many turtles.
Oh yeah.
It's like, please, no more turtles. It's like, we've seen enough turtles, thank you. You know, and so
They're running India.
they were running into you. They'd sit there letting you take their picture.
They're getting in the way of
And the other thing that was kind of cool was, unlike in the Caribbean, where they have like barnacles and all kinds of stuff, these turtles were like constantly scraping their shell on the coral, and so they were the turtles were really clean because of that. And you could see the reefs here, a lot of sponges, a lot of color and everything.
I know Lynn Funkhauser always likes to say that the turtles in the Philippines do that a lot, but we were seeing them do it here.
Yeah,
So-
but I don't think the turtles know exactly where the international border is because the Philippines was right next door. So
Yeah, well,
Just north of you.
yeah. So and then so here's a couple more pictures. I think there I am. They're getting ready to take a picture of the
Of a turtle.
Of a turtle. I think that was I think that was your picture. Yeah. What? Do you remember how deep? Probably. Most of the dives were like 40 to 60 feet.
Some of them were 80.
Yeah, some of them we went a little
Yeah.
deeper. Yeah. Yeah, I think most of mine were about 40 to 60 feet with occasional dip down. And there's Jim with his camera rig, and there's I can't remember what was the name of our dive guide. I can't remember anymore.
I can't remember my name half the time.
Yeah.
We had Lawrence. I don't know the
Yeah.
other guy.
But these guys were absolute pros, and they could like point out like the smallest critters and everything, and they were key to finding stuff. I mean, the dive crew, actually everyone, all of the Indonesians were some of the friendliest people you'd ever meet.
Oh, God,
I mean,
you get tired of them smiling at you outside.
and
saying,
it was kind of funny because like those of us who transited through Istanbul, it's like the Turks on the other hand are the exact opposite.
Yeah.
And it's like they're rude to you and everything, and it's like, when we're going through Istanbul, it's like, yeah, we're not in Jakarta anymore.
Yeah.
It's like, so anyway, the other thing too is, there are many different varieties of lionfish there too. The lionfish were actually brought by aquarists, they think, to Florida, and either got thrown away or accidentally released during a hurricane, and that's how they wound up in the Atlantic region or in the Caribbean region as an invasive species. One of the things, if you dive in the Caribbean, you notice that all the lionfish look about the same, and they're all basically descended from the same half dozen fish, so they're kind of all descended from the same genetic stock. Whereas you go to the Indo-Pacific region, and the lionfish actually look different. You can tell that there's some diversity of species there. We're also treated to some eels as well. Some of the usual suspects here. Some seascapes as well with some sponges and nice corals. And then that was basically the first day of diving. So all excited from that, we did some extra diving, and then we set up to do a land tour as well. So we basically took one day, we condensed our dives a little bit more on some of the other days, so we could take a day to do the land tour. We were actually there during rainy season, which means that it can sometimes rain for a while and then kind of clear up.
The heaviest rains I've ever been in was there.
Yeah. So there were some real downpours, but it didn't actually get in our way too much, thankfully. So anyway, on the Highlands tour, we got to see what a rice paddy looks like. So this is actually rice growing here. And then the other thing that was kind of cool was there was a little village we stopped in, and they have an industry making these prefabricated houses. And it was kind of cool because, they're like these IKEA type houses, where they basically make them and you assemble them together. They were actually really well built, so we got to actually walk through them and everything. And it was just kind of neat to see that. And they were, I can't remember, do you remember how much they cost? They were relatively inexpensive too.
They said, including shipping to nearby, was $12,000.
Yeah. So relatively inexpensive, but it's basically like having an IKEA house. A lot of them, because of the flooding and everything, and the monsoons are built up. They build the houses up on stilts, so you're not on grade. And then the next thing we got to go to the market.
Oh, you're gonna have your best picture then.
Yeah, the market. No, so anyway, but this market was just unbelievable. So this was like a local wet market that we went to, and you could see basically all the stands there. They had some of the most incredible food. I mean, it's a vegetarian's delight here. But anyways, we moved through the market a little bit. We saw some other food stuff. Okay, this is called barbecue rat on bamboo. So you can see that there's like bamboo in the rat there, and delicious. I'll take a pass, please. But anyway, and then the other thing too, Jim just gave me this one, is is that sometimes after needing to use the restroom after seeing the rats, sometimes they have both eastern and western toilets. If you ever travel somewhere east, make sure that you ask for western toilets, like in your hotel room. Otherwise, you're going to have a hole on the floor to squat
So if
in.
you have difficulties standing back up once you've squatted down, you want the western toilet.
Yeah. So anyway, but in places equipped with the western toilets, they sometimes have a sign like that illustrating the proper use of the toilet. So, and then we went to this is Mahau, and it's an active volcano, and you can see on the map there where it is relative to Manado. So we're further south now. So we actually got to climb up to the top, and here I am after having climbed up there, and it was hot, and it was humid was the bigger thing. But you can also see that there's this big crater here, and this volcano last erupted in like 1979, so you could actually smell sulfur in there and everything. They warned us, if you were so inclined, not to climb down these cliffs down into the crater because they've had people do it, and it's sometimes required a helicopter rescue. So it's like, so anyway, here's Dean overlooking the edge here.
Yeah, I'm about ready to climb down.
Yeah,
and then prove them wrong.
And I can't remember what this plant was called.
That's
the pitcher plant. That's a carnivorous plant. So it's got leaves that are like little pitchers, and they have some fluid in them. So they've got some scents and stuff that attract insects, and so then they wind up getting trapped inside and digesting and providing the plant with its requisite nourishment. So anyway, then on the way back, we stopped at a local hot spring, and this was so here we are all in hot water, and so this is actually a geothermal spring. This water was about 40 degrees centigrade, so it's pretty warm. So whatever.
40 degrees would be like, what is it, 90?
No, 37 is body temperature and 38 is a fever. So 38's 100. So
all right,
it's,
well, you know that very well.
Yeah.
I can stay into 105.
Yeah, so it's about 105.
Well, 100 is about what?
100
that's
is
basically bath water.
Yeah, so it was bath water.
Yeah.
It was very nice. It was actually it was like it was like getting in a hot tub, and it was really really nice. And the water was like rich in sulfur, and it's rumored to help your skin and all this kind of.
I wouldn't go into that thing. And I looked at that water and said, I don't know what's in that water.
Yeah, and so you can see Rob in there. Rob had a little trouble getting in, but
Oh yeah, he had a big lot of trouble getting in.
we had to walk down a hill getting in, and poor Rob, his feet slid right out from under him.
And I was afraid he was going to hurt himself doing it.
Yeah, and the thing was, we were out in the middle of nowhere. I mean, you can see in the background over the top, you can see rice paddies and stuff in the background.
But the saltwater cured Rob.
Yeah, but no, but anyway, so there we all are having fun in there. So here's the view in the evening. Several of us would go out in the morning and kind of watch the sun come up. This was actually from in here was the harbor from where we launched our boats to go diving from. And then the next thing after we were done there, we were onward to Banka Island, and here is our group picture, or one of them. We got several of them. So what we actually wound up doing, it was kind of cool because they had everything all set up for us. Because at first when I heard we were moving between resorts twice, I'm like, oh, this is gonna be a pain in the butt, and it's like having to pack everything up. They made it really, really easy. All you had to do was put your bags together and leave them on the front step of your room, and they magically appeared in your room at the next resort. And so we actually traveled by boat. So we went we actually did en route. We actually did 2 dives en route, and so we actually did a dive here. God, what was this island? This little island here. I can't remember what that one was called, but we did a dive there. And then we went onward to Banka Island, and where we stayed, the second resort was right on the tip here of Banka Island. So that was sort of the first leg. So this was basically we spent a day. We did 2 days on the way, or 2 dives on the way there.
I think Indonesia has 2 Banka islands.
Oh.
One is way over on this side, and the
Yeah.
one Banka's over there, and the other one's over there. It's much larger and has a larger population.
Yeah.
So I looked it up and I ran into the wrong island.
Oh, cool. Yeah. So one of the things, just since we hit them during this part of the trip, is to go over, and I didn't want to wait until the end of the presentation in case people leave to share the milestones. So,
Oh yeah. We
Yeah.
don't want people to leave before they share the milestones.
Before I show the milestones,
Yeah,
so
that's
that's why I put it in strategically here. It was we had a couple people, Lisa and Anita, both did their 100th dives. I put the slide deck out to editing. I'm not sure. I can't remember if there are any other milestones. I apologize if I didn't catch them. So here's a picture.
And they kept their clothes on.
Yeah.
You
So
know, a couple years ago, when the trip went to Bonaire, it was Lindsay's 100th dive.
Oh yeah, and she did.
She did it
She
naked.
did it the official way.
Oh,
She did it naked.
well, I'm closing in on my 1,000th dive. So
All right, good for you.
yeah. Do I have to do that naked?
You have to do that. Definitely, that has to be naked.
I'll get cold.
That one is well. You got to do it in Lake Michigan
No, I hate Corey.
or Hey Quarry, whatever.
More I see.
Yeah. So here's Lisa doing her 100th dive. And then, of course, the kitchen, not to be outdone, she got a special cake with congratulations for 100 dives. And then here's Anita's showing off her 100 dive cake.
Yeah. Lots of cake.
Yeah,
She'd be doing runs in the morning and everything. Oh, man.
I did a little bit, but I don't know how she did it. She was like running all the time. Yeah. So, but there was also there was good diving too on Banka Island. So here's an
That's where
example.
the turtles
The turtles were at the first site primarily. There were some here.
Yes, basically that wall diving that we did.
Yeah, the wall diving at the beginning. So we had the thing that was nice about this was we had a really good variety of diving because we had
and that's Nemo.
yeah, we had
Nemo was a false clownfish.
A false clownfish.
I have actually met Nemo.
Oh yeah.
and Nemo has a gimpy fin, doesn't it?
Yeah, it was a juvenile false clownfish. This is in Australia with a gimpy.
With a gimpy fin.
Yeah,
Right there.
because I remember Nemo's gimpy fin in the movie.
Yeah.
But one of the things was we had just a very, very nice variety of diving, as you're going to see as we kind of progress through this. So once we got to Banka Island too, Jim was a very prolific diver, and what's that?
Our guy's name. I was trying to remember our guy's name.
Yeah. So we can see one of our boats in the background there, and I think this was your dive after we actually arrived on Banka Island. You did a dive when we got there, didn't you?
Yeah.
Yeah. So he did an extra dive. We were allowed to, in our package, we had an extra dive on the house reef. So Jim went ahead and did an extra dive, a third dive that day after we got to Banka Island. And unlike at the, I don't have any pictures of the first house reef because I usually don't take a camera on my first dive because I like to get the equipment sorted out. On the other hand, quite frankly, there was nothing worth photographing. It wasn't that great a dive, but it was just more just to get the kinks out, kind of. But the house reef at the Banka Resort was absolutely phenomenal, and got some pictures here. A little bit of soft coral, a lot of fish action here. This was actually, I took this with the Sea Life camera. Actually, it came out pretty nicely, and then more lionfish. The other thing is, I like nudies. Yeah, so
those guys are all over.
yeah. So the other thing there were nudibranchs all over the place. For the non-divers, sometimes these are called sea slugs. They're types of sea slugs, basically, but they're very pretty and they come in a whole bunch of different varieties of colors. These are actually their gills here. So this is their head end here, and so. But here's another example here. These, to give you an idea, these are about typically about 2.5 centimeters long, so about just up to about an inch or so. So they're actually fairly small, So you have to look really closely to see them. And our guides were actually instrumental in pointing these out, and they would actually tell you what the species are and all that kind of thing. And if somebody knows what the Latin names for these are, you're a better man than me. But our dive guides would put on their slate, what the Latin name is for the particular nudibranch that they're showing you. But just to show you some of the variety, you can
Really
see.
for everything on
Yeah.
the rate. At the end of the dive, they had a slate of
They'd have a list.
the highlights of what you saw on the dive, and everything had the common name and the Latin name.
Handle that name. Yeah.
And they were correct. The couple that I did look up, they were correct.
Yeah, no, I mean,
They weren't correct.
They were.
Oh,
Yeah.
they were correct. Oh,
no,
yeah.
no, the
No, I'm sure they're
Which was
correct.
pretty impressive because there's a lot of stuff that we saw, and their
when I took
ability to identify everything.
No,
impressive.
they were phenomenal, and not only that, but as I've gotten older, my eyesight's not as good, and even with a bifocal dive mask, I still have trouble seeing stuff. And it's like they were able to spot these things, and we're going to see more coming up. It's just absolutely phenomenal. I mean, there were some things that I didn't see what they were pointing out. I just took a picture where they were pointing.
Eventually, and when you saw the picture,
And then when I saw
it.
the picture, then I saw what they were pointing out, and it was like, and sometimes it was hard even on on the underwater viewfinder. It was hard. It wasn't until I post processed the picture that I actually saw what they were pointing out. And it's just really phenomenon. It's really phenomenal. I took tropical biology in college, and it was like I remember we were allowed on the practical to we had stuff in tanks and we had to identify it and all that kind of thing. And it was like we were allowed to use either the common or the Latin name. Either one was good for full credit, so it made it a lot easier. So another example of a nudibranch here, different color scheme, but you can see they all have the same kind of they have the two projections in the front here and in a group gills in the back kind of. So that's kind of the defining feature. Some of them. This is another example of a nudibranch, but it looks quite a bit different. And here's yet another one. The other thing too, there was these cool little what's this guy? The guide pointed this out to me. This is probably about less than a centimeter, so maybe about 3/8 of an inch. you know. And that was one that I actually saw, but I got a picture of it with macro lens. And then the other thing too, we had cuttlefish. And the cuttlefish are really cool because one of the things that they have, they're kind of like squid, that they have chromophoric cells in their skin, so they can actually under neurological control, they can actually change color in front of you, which is kind of cool. Kind of like if you ever seen squid changing color.
They can change it very rapidly.
They can change it extremely rapidly. I don't. Did you see a flamboyant cuttlefish? I think it's later. It's in the slide deck.
Yeah.
But those are actually really cool to video.
They're
you
very
know.
flamboyant.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah. If you have flamboyant, I saw a lot of. I didn't see any when I was there, but I know you saw the one, and I saw them in the Philippines. It's like the another example of the cuttlefish here, and there.
That's flamboyant.
Yeah, there you go. That's it, or that's one of them. So, then the other thing. This isn't gonna win any beauty contest, so scorpionfish there, and.
You see its lips on the right.
Yeah,
see its
so
eyes
here's its eye here.
And I can never find this stuff unless somebody points it out to me.
Yeah, and these also can change color, so they can camouflage really well. And usually the only way that I see them is if they happen to be moving, and you happen to see them while they're moving before they settle down. And then once they settle down and you have your eye on it still, then you can see it. But sometimes you take your eye off of it and look the other way, and then you can't find it again. And because they blend in with the reef. The other thing too is they are venomous. It's like the lionfish. The venomous spines are the dorsal spines, the one on the back. A couple pectoral spines and then a couple of anal spines. Like on the lionfish, the fins out to the side are not venomous. Most of the spines out to the side are not venomous. It's the ones on the back. As far as the toxicity of the venom, the lionfish, the scorpionfish, and the stonefish are all in the same family. The lionfish venom is the least harmful. It'll hurt a lot, but it's probably not going to kill you. The scorpionfish venom is somewhat worse. The stonefish venom can actually be deadly. And so the thing is, you want to practice good buoyancy control because you don't want to come crashing down on top of this.
Down on top.
Yeah. On the other hand, the good thing about them is that they're completely non-aggressive. So basically, the only way you're going to get envenomated by them is if you're harassing them or trying to kill them.
But of course, they look like a rock.
Yeah.
So that's why they say, don't touch the rocks.
Yeah, and and the other thing too that was interesting was when I'll show it when coming up when we do the coral restoration dive. And there's this little guy here. Who's he?
Amazon swordfish,
Yeah.
probably.
Yeah. So I can't remember. Was this yours, Jim?
Yeah.
Yeah. And more eels. I'm a sucker for clownfish photography. I just think they're cute. I always try to get, and then the other thing is to try to stop down and fire the strobes really hard to get the anemones to fluoresce around them, kind of like that. So you get that green glow. So you get that green glow in the anemone, and the way you do that is, again, you want to reduce the exposure, so you're forcing the strobes to fire really hard on it, and then that brings out the color. And then here the anemone is partially closed, so you can actually see the mantle here. So this is kind of the mantle of the anemone, and then here's the tentacles here. The clownfish and the anemone have a very symbiotic relationship because the anemones can actually sting, but they won't sting the clownfish. And the clownfish will help clean and feed and help nourish the anemone, and the clownfish also provides protection too. They're in the there's mutual feeding and protection basically between the clownfish and the anemone. And there are certain species of clownfish that go with certain species of anemone. So you can see these clownfish don't look quite like Nemo. Nemo has like two big white stripes on them.
So these anemones, I've never touched an anemone. I did, at least not in the ocean here. But when I was a kid, of course, I used to go to the Oregon coast, and they used to be in the tide pools, and I used to touch them, and they just fold all up. It was a lot of fun. They didn't really sting much.
The stingers are very superficial, so they can't necessarily penetrate like the dead layer of your skin. They can sting small stuff though.
Yeah, we touched them all the time.
Yeah. So the next thing that we did while we were there that was kind of cool, we actually got a lecture on a coral restoration project, and then afterwards we actually got to do a hands-on laboratory of coral restoration, which was really interesting. It was actually kind of fun. So you can see basically what they're doing is we're taking coral here and planting it on these racks basically. So you take little pieces of coral and then we actually tie them to the rack with zip ties and give them a chance to grow and fill in, and then they can take that whole block as basically an artificial reef and use it to kind of use it to basically rebuild the reef in other places. So it was kind of everything that they tell you not to do when you're diving, because we're here touching coral and moving it around, but we were restoring it.
Yeah, they were giving us coral and told, hey, break this in two.
Yeah, break it in two. So anyway.
And tie it with a zip tie.
And one thing I had found very interesting is they had been doing it with dive masters for about a year at this location. And we were the first group to go.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, we were
as a group. Yeah. So they were all very excited about this.
They were all excited about trying it because they had never done it.
We're in the vanguard.
And there was a little bit of slight confusion on the...
Yeah, I think there was a combination of confusion and there was a little bit of a learning curve, but overall it went really, I thought it went really well overall. Yeah. It's a little bit different when you're, because basically the coral farm was about 20 feet, I think, as I recall. So we were down there. So we were down there for a little while. And of course, it's shallow enough that you don't use much air. So it's like, you're actually working, so your sac rate's going to be a little bit higher than when you're just floating around. So here we are. They actually pulled up our two boats together side by side. So here we are on my boat on the left and the other boat on the right. Actually, you can see Jim there too. And you can see Claire in her flamboyant wetsuit.
Flamboyant Clairefish.
Yeah. So the boats were relatively spacious, though, as far as being able to get in and out easily and everything. And the crew, as I said, was top notch. And they help you with your gear and all that kind of stuff. So anyway, so here are some pictures from the restoration dive. So we actually got to participate in 3 distinct activities with the restoration. The first thing was we had empty racks, and you can see on the bottom picture there that we're tying little pieces of coral to the rack with zip ties. And so what will happen is these are staghorn corals, and so they'll grow relatively quickly and sort of fill in and populate that rack there. And then the second activity there, you can see that's the flamboyant clairfish there, isn't it?
No,
that's not it. No, I think
that's.
No, you're on the next. You're on the next one.
Marsh. What was her name?
Marsha, right? Yeah, and then Rob. Yeah, and so the second activity was when the coral is sitting there, that it can have algae and stuff build up on it. So it was basically we were cleaning the coral. So to use that, we were using toothbrushes. So we were here brushing with toothbrushes, and they warned us that there's a scorpion fish that hung around there. So it was interesting because when I was cleaning coral with toothbrushes, all of a sudden this scorpion fish comes flying out of the artificial reef, And it's like, well, good thing because we're kind of kneeling on the bottom sometimes or hovering there, and
I don't remember them warning me about this scorpion.
They did warn us about it. You can see. Aside from the flamboyant...
Once again, Dean, you weren't listening to the briefing.
I just wasn't listening.
That was
just
mentioned.
Like me, right?
That was mentioned in the briefing.
There was a current there too.
Yeah, and so there was a little bit of a current, and the other thing is too, with all the activity going on, the viz wasn't the greatest where we were near shore, and then of course it was kind of like
after you start cleaning that stuff.
After you start cleaning the stuff, the viz got worse.
It was like, hey, Corey.
Yeah, and then it became So anyway, there's the flamboyant clairfish. So then and Rob, of course, was identifiable with his orange dive skin on. But you can see here we have the empty racks here starting to plant the coral. The other thing that I didn't show is the third thing was that if you took a rack that was fairly well grown, in order to get more coral, you would take a pair of clippers and basically like break pieces off that were about 3 inches long. And so that was the third station. So there was the cleaning station, the planting station, and the harvesting station. So we would harvest it and put it into crates basically, and then you bring it to the planting station. So basically what we did was we each had a chance to rotate at each of these 3 stations and try each of the 3 skills. So overall it went really well. I just took the small camera to take these pictures, so that's why the picture quality is not as good. So the other thing that we got to do...
our best dive of all.
The best dive of all, the Blackwater dive. Anyway...
I can't believe you didn't get any...
I got one picture.
Pictures of...
So anyway, I don't, just for the people who don't know what a Blackwater dive is, one of the things that's interesting is that basically when you go out in deep water and there's basically one of the greatest mass migrations on Earth is that you get a bunch of these larval creatures basically come up from the depths at night. It's the total biomass that comes up. It is the largest single migration on Earth. They come up from the depths every night and kind of go back down during the day. And so you have a chance to see like all these little larval creatures, like these little juvenile jellyfish and things. I think the one on the right was one of my pictures. I think the other ones are Jim's pictures.
Yeah, that one I think is Jim. That's your picture there on the,
How many,
left, isn't it?
I believe so.
Yeah, that's yours. How many and blackwater photography is actually very, very difficult because it's hard to get the proper lighting and get a focus lock and everything.
It's best to do video than do a graph.
Yeah. How many people have done a blackwater dive?
Now we've done
Yeah.
it. I've done it. It was the first time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I had done them before. But the thing that was interesting about this one was we were getting eaten alive. And
my hand was bloody.
They were these little sea lice or something that they were biting my face. They were biting my hands.
We decided they must have been what they call copepods.
I think it was
And which is a little crustacean type thing.
Yeah.
And they're very tiny, and they draw blood.
Yeah.
They're orange, aren't they?
They were once they have blood in them there.
Orangish, brownish.
In the Philippines, when I was there, I was doing a day dive. I saw all these little orange things on the bottom. They weren't messing with anything. They were all on the bottom.
Yeah, well, to this day, that's the only ocean creature that's ever attacked.
Yeah, no, I mean it's always. I mean, some people when you do like night dives and you have like bright lights on and you get like those stupid little bloodworms, you know, but they don't bother you. They're just annoying. But but the thing was, who was it? There was me and one other person. Peter and I aborted the dive after about 10 minutes.
The rest of us decided to stick it out.
And so the two of us, it was funny because the two of us come up, and it's like. And it's like, and we look at each other, but I'm like thinking, am I the only one who was getting eaten alive down there?
And one of the dive masters came into me and said, "Don't go up and down," because I was going down, I was going up, and so all I'm trying to do is get away from these things. Is it better up there? Is it better down there? I don't know.
Well, I went down and then I went up, and it was like I was still getting eaten alive, and I'm like I wasn't enjoying it at all because it was like all that was happening. And so Peter and I come up and we look at each other, we just busted up laughing, and so we aborted at about 15 minutes, and everyone else is staying down. We're wondering how long everyone else is going to be down there. We're thinking we were the only ones getting eaten.
If you're ever in a situation like that, what I was taught was you take your regulator and make a whole bunch of bubbles.
Yeah.
And then you go up to the boat if you
Then you get out of the water.
Yeah.
We didn't get out of the water.
I tried the bubble trick.
We tried everything.
It wasn't working out well either. So.
And they said it's never happened to them before. They said that has never happened to them before.
Yeah.
But the thing is, I've done other blackwater dives,
You
including
have?
in the Indo-Pacific, and I've never had that happen to me before. So I mean, it's like,
It was that great migration that did it.
yeah. It's like, sort of like with the sea wasp, like you're talking about with the sea wasps. If you're doing night dives, the other thing, I always carry a red light too on my photography lights because the red lights won't attract critters, and but you always have to be careful, particularly getting back on the boat. That there isn't stuff up there, and that's where purging the regulator can really help because it can clear you a path temporarily so that you can board without getting bitten. And then actually, if you want to say any more about your.
And the one on the right's a fish.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, with a little bit of
Gotta clear that up.
yeah, with some near field backscatter.
I didn't have the backscatter eliminator, so.
I have backscatter assassin.
Oh, I'm sorry.
So one of the things I did with it, we had the Blackwater photos from the previous Indonesia trip looked a lot like this too.
Yeah.
Photoshop is really good about just picking out the object. So I did that and threw it on a black background. It looked fantastic.
It looks great.
I did a montage.
I will have to say, I think this is my third Blackwater dive, and this is the only one that I've had any photos of that were, they're not great photos, but at least you can see that there was something other than a blur.
It's very hard to photograph.
Yeah.
The other thing you can do is put it on manual focus, and then just wait until it comes in, because it's very hard to do a focus lock because everything's happening so quickly.
They're swimming around.
Yeah, because everything's swimming and floating around and moving around, and
Yeah.
and it's very small.
Charles, I did video,
Yeah,
and that's the only way you're gonna catch
yeah,
it.
that's the other way you can do it.
And you have to pretty much stop down, and the depth of field is
Yeah.
still, even with the stop down, is fairly limited. And
Yeah,
So you're
and
talking, these are people who have really nice cameras. So they
yeah,
know what
we'll
they're-
see that coming up.
Yeah.
So it's like, so anyway, so once we were done in Banka Island, we actually had a tour of the village. I actually didn't go on it, but there's a little isolated village here that you have to take a boat to get around. Banka Island is very sparsely populated. In fact, the resort we stayed at was off the grid. They had their own generators and solar panels, so like you didn't have air conditioning during the day, and that. So
you think so?
so anyway, I took some pictures off the WhatsApp feed of the village here. This was Lanao, I think it was, and did any of you go on that tour?
Yeah, Gabriel did that.
Yeah. So
I fell down 3 times. I took the
Yeah.
I walked there,
Oh, no.
and I fell 3 times because it had been rainy and the
It was
trail
too
was
dark,
Yeah.
hot, and
filled
humid.
with these palm leaves that were slippery as anything.
yeah. So the interesting, and of course the again, the Indonesian people are so friendly, and there's an incredible sense of national pride there and everything. And
you get tired of these people smiling at you all the
Yeah.
time.
So and so the group got to meet up with some kids there, with some of the local kids there, and I don't if anyone of us who was there. Again, I didn't go on this
Is
tour.
that the sewer system they're in?
Storm sewer.
Storm sewer, yeah, storm sewer.
And how is their English as a nation?
It's not
In the
bad.
Not bad.
Philippines,
Not bad.
Yeah, I never had any trouble. Of course, we were tourists in tourist places.
Yeah.
Right.
So
People
that's
who deal with
I think
tourists.
the younger kids had better English than, as you got progressively older, the English skills got worse. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, anybody that deals with tourists and takes them around and everything, their English is great.
Oh yeah.
Usually better than mine.
Ours?
Yeah. So once we had the tour and everything, then we're continuing our trip around here. So we left Manka Island, and we actually traveled across, and we did the dive on the mainland side here, and then we continued around in towards Lembeh. So this is Lembeh Island here. And then in between the island and the mainland is Lembeh Strait. Now the interesting thing is there's no bridge between the island and the mainland. So the only way to get to the resort and everything, like if you flew into Manado and you want to stay there, you have to take a boat. And so, but since we were traveling by boat anyway, but of course the other thing is it meant that they had to put all our bags on another boat and take our bags by boat over to Lembeh as well. So our bags had to. I actually watched on my AirTag. They took our bags from Manado over road to over here somewhere to one of the ports, and then took them across by boat. And I think that they actually took them across by boat, and then took them by road and then by boat again over to the resort. So a lot of work on their part too, to make things nice for us. So here's at the at Lembeh Resort. Here's the map of the dive sites. So the Lembeh Strait is basically well known for muck diving, and we'll see what that is in a moment. They talk about it being the world's best muck diving here. And anyway, this is the Lembeh Resort here. It's a very lush area, and the resort was kind of on a hill. Actually, at every place that we stayed, it kind of got each place got progressively nicer, and which was kind of cool. What was really nice at the Lembeh Resort, they had a very, very well equipped camera room. So here's my station over here with my rig, and
Couple bucks in that system.
just a few. So it was kind of nice because we could have our charging. We had our charging area there and all that kind of stuff. So I mean, they gave you like everything you need. That was good lighting, tons of electrical outlets. Workroom, all that, and then this was also near where we went diving from, so it made it really, really nice. So
Not that it really mattered, because the second you picked up a camera, one of the dive guides came and grabbed it from me.
Yeah, no. If
and
you
said,
were
"I'll bring it
carrying,
up
if you were
to
carrying
you."
your camera out, they would take it from you and take it out, and they knew it was amazing because they knew whose equipment was who and everything.
And miraculously, somehow you could leave your camera on the boat and it would end up in your
Oh,
camera
wow.
station.
Yeah, it would
But
wind
it was
up.
like the easiest diving in the.
No, I mean, usually if I left my camera on the boat, or usually I'd carry it back to the rinse bucket, it would somehow wind up rinsed and back at my camera
Yeah.
station again. You know, it's like, and handled with care too. So it's
Well,
like,
the thing is too, is we have the same guides throughout the entire week.
yeah,
Or 2 weeks.
Yeah, but those
Yeah,
are
they
the questions.
followed us
They
around
travel
from
here.
they traveled.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, so the guy that which was kind of nice because the guides, you know, and there was like one guide for like every 4 divers
Yeah, it was
basically.
great.
So it was like, you know, so it was really good. So, you know, you didn't have everyone all piling on top of like one little nudibranch or something. And so anyway, the Pisa Resistance here. Okay, Jim, do you want to comment?
That yours, Jim?
It is.
I think
As Charles was saying, the dive masters will show you where things are, and the closeness of colors on these and how well they camouflage and the size of them are, it's just almost impossible to see them without a dive guide. And I had a diopter on my macro lens, so I was able to get a.
Was it 5
a shot.
yeah.
I think it was. I'm not sure on this particular shot. I had both, but I think it was a 10 on that first shot.
Yeah.
So the pygmy seahorse was discovered in an aquarium before it was discovered in the wild.
Wow.
Because they had some, they only grow on these fan corals, and I guess they brought some fan coral to an aquarium, and somebody just happened to notice something on it.
But
I guess they just inspected it really well, and
yeah.
then they said, "Oh, where did this come from?"
And they're small too. I mean, they're literally they're probably 3 centimeters, so about
You can
a little over
kind
an
of
inch.
get a relative size of one of the coral polyps there compared to the pygmy seahorse.
Yeah, I don't have the one.
I don't think they're anywhere near an inch, Charles.
Yeah,
I don't think they're anywhere close to it.
yeah, yeah. I was
mean,
thinking
if you look this up on Wikipedia, they'll talk about an inch, right? You
Yeah.
know, none of these were anything near.
Well, I was
Stretch
thinking
them out.
I was thinking an
That would be a
inch would be a
giant
big
stretch.
one if you stretched them out full length. You know. Yeah,
If you stretched them out full length and measured very
About the size of your pinky.
yeah. So they're very
It may have been an inch in Charles's magnifying viewfinder.
yeah. Well, and the other thing too is you know, it's like, you know, unless you shine a lot of light on them, they're harder to see too. Because of course, just, you know, when you're down there in ambient lighting too, and they're small, and the dive guides would pick them right up. And like one of the ones that I took, it was like he's pointing. I couldn't see what he was pointing at. I'm just shooting pictures of it. You know, it's like so. So in addition to the, we'll have a few more of these later, but
And I did go back and after everybody circled through and got their pictures, I did go back and try to find it and on my own.
Yeah.
And I think I tried that about 10 times and only once, only because I knew like the very specific area that it was, and there was like a particular fold in the coral that I was able to spot it. So
yeah,
the dive guide's ability to see things were just amazing.
yeah. So in addition to that, we did the mandarin fish dive, and here's a picture here that I took the elusive mandarin fish. One of the things that's interesting, and these are also very small. They're about the size of the tip of your finger. But basically, you have to, in order to see them, you have to go out at dusk. It was a fairly shallow dive, but they're kind of inside the coral. They come and kind of get together briefly and mate, and kind of go back down. So you kind of have to keep an eye out for them. Again, the guides were really helpful for this because.
Well, I had to show the guide where they were.
Oh.
Went out down there. I actually saw them. I
Yeah.
brought the guide and I said, "Look, here they are. They're down here."
Yeah. So anyway, but I did have the guide. I actually got some fairly good pictures of mandarin fish while I was down there, and
So you get the advantage because you have a camera, but at nighttime, even with if you flash the light at them like normally, they scatter really fast.
No, you have to use a red light.
Yeah.
you have to use. I used red lights, and I used the other thing that they would do if you're pointing with a regular light is you use the penumbra of the light. You don't use the center bright spot. You use like the outer part of it where it's not as bright, so that you don't scare them.
Yeah.
And because otherwise, if you shine a light on them, they'll disappear. But the easier way was to just use the red light, and then just blast them with a strobe in order to bring out the colors. And then that way they don't have any time to get away.
So I saw them. I didn't see all these colors.
Yeah, but that's kind of. But they're really, really colorful, and we did a special dive because they take you out to a dive site where they can see them, and you have to be like right at dusk basically. So they take you at the appropriate time. And then the other thing too that we saw like these little, I forget, these like these little filefish or something.
Yeah, those ups and those they swim.
The razor shrimp fish, yeah.
Yeah, razor.
And it's kind of cool because they just kind of hover vertically like that. And then another mandarin fish here with some near field backscatter.
Yeah, you can.
Yeah.
And actually, this in a one dive, this was the number one thing we saw.
Yeah, we saw quite a few seahorses.
And this is probably very typical of the muck diving, is that you have the black sand
black volcanoes.
with a little bit of seagrass or something in there.
Things in it.
Yeah, and it kind of like the first time I ever did a muck dive. I'm like looking around, and it looked like it reminded kind of the bottom of Lake Michigan, where there's just kind of like sand there with a little bit of grass and everything, and it's like, oh, this sucks, and then it's like, and then the thing was, you start looking through your 100mm macro lens, and there is just like stuff everywhere. You just have to look for it, and it's all typically small. So here's another. I think this was yours, wasn't it?
I believe so,
Yeah. So another garden variety, another seahorse there. So we saw quite a few of those. This is a juvenile flying batfish, and so that was kind of cool.
I got my T-shirt with the batfish thing on there.
Yeah, and then also we did see some frogfish too. I don't know why the pictures are a little more washed out on here. The brightness is a little higher on that screen than on here.
So
for
that
some
you know
reason.
where its mouth is down there,
Yes.
and you see its.
Yeah,
right
so there's the mouth, eyes. And the thing that's interesting is the frogfish feeding is one of the fastest actions in nature.
Yeah.
Where they can put their tongue out and grab their prey and suck it in milliseconds. So it literally is one of the fastest things in nature. The other thing too is a lot of critters are very, very well camouflaged, and so this is an example from muck dives. This is a leaf fish, and you can see here's the eye over here. But if you're going by it, it just looks like
a leaf.
It looks like a leaf. It looks like just a little bit of like dead leaf, like you'd see in Hey Glory or something, sitting on the bottom. And you look and so here actually the guide was helping me. He trans-illuminated it for me like that to get a good picture there.
You found a blue ring.
Yeah, that's yours.
Yeah, we didn't see one.
Yeah.
First day, first dive.
First day, first dive.
Was that from the first day, first dive?
It was, yeah.
Oh, cool.
That thing's one of the more poisonous things you can.
Venomous.
Yeah.
Venomous. Excuse me. You're right. One of the most venomous things you can encounter.
No anti-venom.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that was like a wonderpuss.
That's a wonder.
Wonderpuss.
Oh, they're all over the place.
Yeah. Yeah. So another octopus. That was yours. Yeah. And then
Now, is that a wonderpuss or a mimic?
It's a mimic.
that's a mimic, right? And then and then we got treated to some hermit crabs as well. So you can see the hermit crab lives in somebody else's shell basically. So there's eyes there, and then this one
Is it shrimp of some kind?
yeah, this one's a something anemone shrimp.
Bubble?
I can't remember the name. It was
Yeah. Anemones or something maybe?
yeah. There was a common name for it too that now I can't remember. I should have added it to the annotations.
Another shrimp.
Another little shrimp there, and we'll see some more in a little bit. But and then the other thing too that was kind of cool was the ghost pipefish. So you can see with there's the eye right there.
Oh, yeah.
So you know, but the thing is, it just blends right in. And the other thing too with a lot of these camouflage creatures, when you hit them with the strobe and you look at the picture, they stand out a lot more than they did, you know, when you're in ambient lighting. So it's like, and you can't scan everything with a flashlight. So it's like even during the day when you go diving, always take a light with you. You know, it's very, very handy. But basically you can see the fish there, and it just blends right in. So
This blends right in.
that
too.
blends right in there too. So again, the guide pointed that out to me, and that was like tiny, less than half an inch. You know, another little shrimp.
Oh, yeah, look at this one.
Yeah,
Crabby thing.
the little tiny crab, and these again, this is probably the body's probably less than half an inch long. So tiny little things, you know, and they just point them. I kind of get lost as far as the names of what some of these things as well too.
That's a squat lobster of some sort.
That one is yeah. And then this was kind of cool too because
I saw that. I couldn't tell what it was.
yeah, and I think it was sort of like I think they said it was like a bladefish shrimp or something like that. But what was kind of cool was this is the same one. So our guide kind of this is from the front, lit from the same side, and then he trans-illuminated it for me from behind. So that's what it looks like there. So that's the same critter basically taken from opposite way, but it's trans-illuminated on the second one. So you can see its eye over here. See, and here's the eye here. So the pictures are mirror images because we kind of switch sides. Here's another pygmy seahorse here. I can't remember this one. This one may have been mine. I can't remember if this one was mine or Jim's.
I'm not sure.
Yeah. This one I think is yours.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was that yellow like that, or is that just the poster?
No, it was kind of orangish yellowish, and it was the one that was on Anemone Falls,
Oh, okay.
or Nudie Falls,
Yeah.
Oh, nudie falls.
where it was kind of tucked underneath the ledge.
Yeah.
It was very hard to get into.
Hey, where'd it
What
go?
did you do?
I don't know. It's been doing. No, it's still red. It'll just take a
All
second.
right.
Yeah, there we go. Yeah, so more examples of nudibranchs. Again, we see the gills in the back here, right here, right here. So you can see it's kind of the same general layout, but you can see how different they look, you know, in different colors and everything. But there's a huge variety of nudibranchs. Again, I like photographing them.
Psychedelic.
Yeah, there's some more of the different colors. This was kind of cool. The guide actually pointed this out to me. So here's the nudibranch with a little shrimp on it here. So that was
a little cleaner.
yeah. So here it is getting cleaned. As I said, they come in all kinds of shapes and
I
varieties.
don't remember seeing this.
I didn't see that.
Yeah,
I didn't see this.
that was towards the end.
Oh, look at that.
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah, blending right in there. And then I think this was yours.
Oh, okay.
The ribbon eel.
We saw some nice ones in the Philippines.
Yeah, Philippines.
Yeah. Yeah, so you see these in the Philippines as well. And then
Seaman of Hawaii.
yeah. And
How
then
big are they?
this was yours too, I think.
Yeah.
They're nice.
What is
size.
that? What type of fish is that?
It's a goby, some sort.
goby?
It's, I think he said it's a long fin blind goby with a shrimp and
Oh, the blind goby would be, no, it's a shrimp.
Yeah.
We saw a lot of that. We saw a lot of that activity of the shrimp and the goby inside the hole, and the shrimp cleaning the hole out and
Yeah.
sort of watching out.
Keeping guard.
Yeah.
We saw a lot of that
That's
activity.
fascinating.
Yeah. And so it's got
They
a
were
little
doing
shrimp
it all
there.
over the place.
And then so then we all had our requisite, which some people wore, and unfortunately I fell
And
down.
just back up to that photo just for a second. There's a little bit of a story on this.
Yeah.
I don't know what happened to everybody else, but I decided to do a night dive on this dive. And it was just me and the dive guides. We were the only two people on the boat. I think it was raining, so it was a bad night to stay above ground, so I figured we might as well go underwater.
I think I was too tired, that's why I didn't go.
And I took probably about 1,000 shots of these two. And you get one with the goby in focus and one with the shrimp not in focus. And it was almost, we this pretty much spent the whole dive just photographing to get one shot. So
Well, you've been really boring to dive with.
Yeah.
it was great. I mean, that's the
These
type of
go-
diving
these
I really
go
like.
beans.
It's great to have the opportunity to
But I mean,
do it.
I've
And
spent.
it is kind of the only. It's one of the few places in the world where you have the dive to diver ratio that you can do something like that.
Yeah.
So
What depth was this?
I think it was right around 40 feet or so. So we had plenty of time, and
Yeah, most of the
I
dives.
think it was like a 90-minute dive too, which was
Yeah.
nice.
And what that was the other thing.
You just leave.
No.
That was the other thing too. That was most of our dives were typically up to about 70 minutes.
Yeah.
You know, so we had, you know, especially since for the most part you were only going briefly down deeper, so you don't go through as much air and no deco time. So you know, at 40 to 60 feet, I mean, you can spend a lot of time underwater. So
Were you guys also coming up with like 100 or 200 psi in your
No.
tanks?
No.
Oh, I did.
Well,
Me.
they were taking us down to like 100 feet quite a bit.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
we were stretching those dives out until
Yeah.
the very last.
Yeah. I can still breathe something out of here.
yeah, we still,
Getting a little tough, but I can do
They
it.
did give you very generous profiles.
yeah. I mean, I
I didn't think
typically.
they went as deep as some other places did there.
Went deeper. You guys went deeper.
Yeah,
They
That
were
could-
averaging like
that could
75
be,
feet.
but,
Yeah.
But on this particular
If I would have
dive,
gone shallower, I still would have used it.
because I typically would finish with like 700 or so, but it was like the But the thing was, but the thing is, I make a point of staying shallower because I'm taking pictures and you know the lighting's better and that kind of thing. So it's like,
and the dive guide was very excited about this photo because this particular goby, the species, was discovered only in the late 90s, and Lembeh Resort is the place that they found it or discovered it. And as far as I know, it's the only place in the world that it's located. So
oh, that's cool.
The Lembeh pipe horse or whatever, or something else. Or
this particular goby,
Oh, that goby. Oh.
yeah.
So
So
There we are.
yeah. So anyway, so we all had our requisite. T-shirts, which I was derelict and didn't wear tonight because I forgot. But Dean and Claire are sporting the trip T-shirt here for us. So there we had our group picture with some of the guides before we were getting ready to leave because all good things unfortunately have to come to an end here. So that was when we were getting ready to leave Lembeh, and we had to actually, you know, as you remember from the map, we had to leave by boat across the Lembeh Strait, and then when we got back to the mainland. We could see some of the villages on the other side here. So here's some of the villages here. There were some boats there. The other thing that was interesting too while we were out, you know, we saw some Indonesian fishermen going by here. This was actually while we were diving. But the other thing too was that they had these little houseboats, like these little. This one was just moored, but sometimes for their fishing operation, they actually have somebody live on one of these things for a little while, basically to attend to the nets and everything. You know, so as part of the fishing operation. So once we were back to the mainland again, this is the Lembeh Strait here. Once we got back to the mainland, then we went overland back to the airport. Which the interesting thing was, even though the airport was closer to the west side, there was a brand new toll road that basically connected, which was actually very nice. So it was actually quicker to get there from the eastern side because we got to go on the new road, and then we flew back to Jakarta. And for those of us who flew back to Istanbul, here's from FlightAware. So you can see we kind of went over the southern tip, over Sri Lanka and over the southern tip of India. And then we went over Oman and over the Persian Gulf here, straight over Iraq, over the tip of Syria here, and then over Turkey and into Istanbul. Again, unfortunately, our Airbus aircraft didn't have any problems. Glad we weren't on a Boeing. Sorry, I shouldn't say. And so there's the Jakarta airport there. So anyway, on the way back, those of us who went to Istanbul, I got a few pictures from here.
With my mouth full.
Yeah.
Take the picture of them.
Selfie. So one of the things that was kind of cool was if you ever fly on Turkish Airlines, they have basically these transit tours. They do the same thing in Korea and some other places as well, or in Doha as well, where they actually, if you have a layover, you can actually get out of the airport and they'll take you on a tour of places. And
Free.
So, yeah, and it's free too, except in Doha they charge you for it, but it's not.
I wasn't in Doha.
Yeah, but anyway, on the way back, so several of us went on the tour. So this is so these are some pictures of Istanbul here, and this was the I think this was like the old palace or something.
Yeah,
with this
there was
museum.
a mosque there too.
Yeah, I've got and then
That's the tower.
that was the tower at the palace. They had, and then then there was a mosque there, and so we actually got to go inside the mosque as well.
They are so beautiful.
The mosques are, yeah, I mean, some of the Islamic architecture is just amazing, you know, and it's
How long was your layover? To allow you to do this?
Well,
5
mine
hours.
was 9 hours
Yeah.
for me. I mean, it was.
And we got to, and our departing flight was delayed, so we had a little longer too.
Don't they have different tours for
They do.
Yeah, for different lengths. You
And
can
they'll-
do anywhere from like a 2-hour tour to a 4-hour tour, and one that just goes all day.
And they have like an all-day,
Yeah.
3-hour
3-hour
tour.
tour.
Yeah, and so yeah, I mean, but one of the things you can do is, you know, on the app basically for the airlines that do this, you can like pick your arrival and departure time, and they have tours that fit it, and they get back to the airport on time and everything. And so it was actually kind of fun, and you get to experience the culture a little bit. And the other thing that was kind of cool going through Istanbul, there was this aqueduct that's like over 1,000 years old, and I forget whether they said it was still in use or not. Turkey is also a Muslim majority country, and
But they're secular.
they're very secular. But the thing is, you see mosques and minarets everywhere. So I mean, it's like, and then there was one mosque that they showed us across the way was like 6 minarets because they're all trying to outdo each
Yeah,
other.
they're trying to outdo each other with the minarets.
Yeah.
In fact, there's an old one, and then somebody else built a new mosque with 6 minarets. Saying, if they got 6 minarets, I'm going to have 6.
Yeah. So it's kind of like the churches where they're trying to build the tallest steeple and everything. You know,
Yeah,
it's kind of
right.
the same idea. And it's kind of funny because a lot of the mosques, it used to be the purpose of the minaret was whoever was for the call to prayer. So they would actually climb up to the top, you know, whoever was leading the services would call the top and call the faithful
And
to prayer.
shout as loud as they
Now it's
could.
automated.
Now it's all automated at pretty much any mosque you go to. You'll see like a little row of loudspeakers up at the top there, and so the call to prayer is paid electronically. And it was kind of interesting because, like, when we were in Manado at the first resort, there was a mosque nearby, and so in the morning you'd hear the call to prayer kind of echoing over, and several times a day.
And
Yeah.
actually, North Sulawesi is a majority Christian
Yeah.
area.
There was one mosque there, but it is majority Christian.
Especially if, I don't know if you noticed, but when you went back to Manado through Batam, it's like there are like 2 churches on every block.
Yeah.
And you got to drive and drive. Oh, there's a mosque, and then it's a church.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mostly Calvin.
Calvin.
Calvin, yeah.
I didn't know.
Thank the Dutch.
Yeah.
Like the Dutch.
True.
Good old Dutch.
And the other thing is also kind of like in Indonesia, a lot of national pride. There was big Turkish flags everywhere and that kind of thing. So
I also thought one thing that was very interesting in Indonesia is because a lot of the gas stations don't have power or don't have pumps for gas, that they filled old Coca-Cola bottles that were a liter with gasoline, and they just had wrapped in front of the store.
Yeah, if you have a moped, that's kind of what
And you bought it you bought your gas by liter, and you got it in a glass bottle. So.
yeah. Although we actually stopped at a convenience store while we were doing our land tour, mainly to use the facilities. There was one toilet that was just a hole in the floor that we all had to use. So